Hello and welcome to OnEBoard's Tech Topic 58 with 3 tips in 10 minutes. Unfortunately, Nina will not be able to join us today. It's just me and my colleague Bob, but we'll still have 3 tips for you. As always, there's going to be more details published on our website and a link in the video description. So, Bob, what is your tip or tips for this week?
Okay, Peggy, today is all about Adobe. And I'm going to start with the best Adobe tip first. And that's 5 days ago, Adobe came out and released a free version of Photoshop for your mobile device. Now, how cool is that? F-R-E-E, free. And it's pretty robust because it includes many Photoshop editing tools like combining, compositing, blending images with selections, layers, and masks, spot healing brush, and of course, access to Adobe stock images. Another really cool thing is that you'll have access to Firefly AI generated features, which is like generative fill and generative expand, which seem like they would be very practical tools. Tip number 2, and this again concerns Adobe.
But before you do that, I wanted to add, I did see that announcement and it was about the iPhone, but I looked it up and there is an Android version of the Photoshop app coming soon.
That's right. Thank you, Peggy. I forgot to mention that. It's available right now on iPhone, and later on in this year, we're going to have the Android version come out, okay? So you folks be aware of that. Now, if you own Adobe's Lightroom Classic, you know that importing raw files, they really take up a lot of hard disk space. And what a way to basically overcome that, especially when you're editing, is to, when you import them, check off something called Enable Smart Previews. That's under File Handling, the right-hand column, you'll see a little box. You check that, and when you import your photos, they will immediately be, they will add another version of your photo that isn't raw. It will be a DNG file, and it'll be much smaller. Just to give you an idea, on Adobe's webpage, they had an example. 500 raw images from a DSLR could occupy as much as 14 gigabytes of disk space. Now, if you create these smart preview files, that same number of files will only add up to 400 megabytes.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference. And hey, really one of the cool things is that that smart preview will be attached to your catalog, which in best case scenarios you have on your SSD, not an external drive, okay? And because of that, you could unplug your external drive and still work on your files because you'll have that smart preview already right in your catalog, basically, which is pretty doggone cool. And then if you were to plug your external drive back in, it would automatically sync to whatever changes you made to that particular file. And in fact, one person said that this is a really great way to keep your hard drives actually working, because when the catalog is constantly communicating with your raw images, it's a lot of work on your hard drive, and he maintains that he has fried a bunch of hard drives because of that. But once you use smart previews, you're obviously lessening the load on those particular pieces of hardware, which is really kind of cool too. So those are two pretty good tips from Adobe. Peggy, what can you tell us today?
So my tip is not so much for photographers, but for everyone. I just want to share my screen for a moment. And just quickly, my tip this week is to set up quick share for Windows for easy file sharing with Android devices. So if you have both an Android phone or tablet and a Windows computer, this tip is for you. And just really quickly. So Quick Share is a feature that's built into Android. If you have a recent Android device, you're able to quick share between it and other Android devices or Chromebook. The idea is that you can transfer files with just a couple clicks. And Google has an app you can install on your Windows computer so that it can talk to your Android devices. And it's really easy to install and set up. Just a couple of notes. It requires a Bluetooth connection, so your Windows computer has to have Bluetooth. You need a 64-bit version of Windows 10 or higher, or if you have an ARM device, at least Windows 11. And on the Android side, you need at least Android 6 or higher, which is actually pretty old. It's basically just what this picture looks like, where you use the quick share option. So, on your phone, think about how you share to an app or something like that. The way this works is you share to Quick Share. Quick Share finds nearby devices it can share to, and then you select that, and the transfer, it's almost instantaneous. I've used it for videos that are hundreds of megabytes. It is so much easier than trying to connect things with a cable or upload and download or send an email or anything like that. It's just immediate transfer. And doing this with Windows just makes it that much easier. You have to install it from the Android official website. There is a version of Quick Share in the Microsoft Windows App Store, but it's there from Samsung. I don't know if that's legitimate or not, but Google's documentation says you should go to the Android website to install the app. And it works great. There will be a link in the video description where you can get that. So all you need to do is install it. You set it up. You can sign in with your Google account. If you do that, you can limit transfers to either yourself, basically just with devices where you're signed in to the same account, or you can say your contacts. So as an example, I was working on something with my brother and I needed a file from his computer. He had this installed and I basically turned on the option to let contacts share with me, and just a couple clicks, he basically just transferred the file right onto my phone, just like that. So it was great. I strongly recommend this if you ever transfer files between devices. And so that is my tip for this week.
That's a great tip, Peggy. In fact, I can tell you, I've quick shared with my brother who lives in Wisconsin.
Really?
It doesn't have to be right next to you. Once you set up quick share, it will.
That's even better.
In fact, the real benefit of quick share is the enormous size files that you can send like lightning.
Yeah.
If you try, in fact, there's a limitation on email, and then you already said that it's so complicated to do other ways too. But that quick share, I got to tell you, it is amazing.
And I think one concern that sometimes people don't think about is like if you upload files into the cloud and download them again, sometimes things like the metadata isn't retained, and it makes small changes. This way, it's the actual file that's just being moved. It's so easy. And I also used to transfer files, between the laptop and between my phone to the laptop. And it's like, I find a cable that will connect them and it has to be set up properly. None of that. This is just click, click, do it. So obviously I'm enthusiastic about sharing files. So those were our 3 tips for this week. Thanks to people for watching us. Next week, OnEBoard Chat is going to have our friend Michael Daniels. He's going to chat about live streaming. He's a real expert, so I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week, and we'll see you next Sunday. Bye, all.
Have a good day, everybody.
And I have to stop the recording. Stop recording. And I have to stop.